Whether my life is a normal one or not, and whether people think it's a normal one, depends very much on one's conception of normality. Who is normal? I mean, what is normality? I think I need to clarify that question first. I myself feel a very normal person. I feel I'm not only very normal, I feel I'm very healthy, in fact, on every level. But I'm quite sure that there are people who would think that I'm leading a quite abnormal and even unhealthy and even eccentric sort of life, but I certainly wouldn't accept that. My life has been to me a source of very deep satisfaction, and I feel it's normal in the best sense of the term, in as much as my whole life has been dedicated, as far as I'm able to dedicate it, to the realization of higher spiritual values. To me, nothing could be more normal than that.
But anyway, he was trying to force temple entry for the untouchables in one of the big temples of Benares.
I had scarlet fever when I was just turned 8. I remember the occasion very well. I remember very clearly the time when it was actually discovered. I have almost a sort of visual memory of the doctor, our GP, coming to see me. I remember him standing me up in front of the window and looking at my chest and finding all sorts of red spots and saying to my parents, who were hovering nearby quite worried, he's got scarlet fever. And that meant that he had to go off to hospital. I was in there for about 3 weeks, I think. I missed Christmas. I remember that my mother came to collect me, and one of the nurses in the ward who'd been looking after me, who seems to have been a rather perceptive woman, took my mother aside and said, I think there's something wrong with his heart. He's got a very, very fast pulse, and I think you'd better take him back to his GP and get him properly examined. So that was done. The treatment at that time, apparently, was just to immobilize the patient. So I was put into bed, and I was just kept lying there and lying there. I wasn't allowed to sit up by my own efforts. And I passed most of my time reading.
Children, have you ever met the bogeyman before? No, of course you haven't, for you're much too good, I'm sure.
Originally, I was after all only 8 years old. My father used to go and get me a boy's magazine, every morning. I remember those magazines very well. It was The Wizard and the Rover and the Hotspur.
Bogeyman, don't let him come too close to you, he'll catch you if he can.
The room I occupied was a very small one, and lying in bed I could see the owl clock which had been given by my parents a year or two before. On the wall it was a sort of wooden fretwork owl, and it had a weight hanging from a chain, and a pendulum, and the pendulum went back and forth making a loud tick-tock, tick-tock. And in accordance with the tick-tock, in accordance with the movement of the pendulum, the eyes of the owl would move from left to right, or right to left. Tick-tock, tick-tock. And I used to lie there for hours, I suppose, just watching this owl clock and listening to the tick-tock.
Little boy kneels at the foot of the bed.
I remember that when I was very, very small, my father taught me a prayer that his grandmother had taught him.
Hush, hush, whisper who dares. Christopher Robin is saying his prayer.
But later on, when I came to learn about the Buddha and about Muhammad, I thought, well, they've got to be considered too. So rather naively, and I think this lasted only a few months, I used to address my bedtime prayers to these 3 figures. But eventually, of course, God or Jesus dropped out, Muhammad dropped out, and only the Buddha remained. During the period that I was evacuated to the West Country, when I was in Torquay, I found in the public library there a book called Isis Unveiled by Madame Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society. And this book, Isis Unveiled, made a tremendous impression on me. And after reading it, I realized that I just wasn't a Christian. When I was about, I suppose it was 15 or 16, I had a sort of mystical experience near Amen Corner in Tooting. I was walking along the High Street, I suppose, yes, it must be Tooting High Street. I was walking along the High Street, and I suddenly experienced everything receding into the distance, the far distance, the sound of the traffic, the sound of the people. All those sounds, they just faded away into the distance, and eventually, I think, virtually disappeared. And I seemed to find myself in a sort of void, seemed to find myself in a state almost of pure consciousness, one might say. And I was walking through this. But this void and this consciousness was also me. So in a way, I was walking through myself. When I was 18, of course, I was conscripted, like everybody else, aged 18. I hadn't thought I would be conscripted on account of my heart condition. I'd assumed that I would just be exempted. But I was examined, I was re-examined, I was examined by a specialist, and I was told rather brusquely, nothing wrong with your heart at all. So into the army I went. I did have a bit of a shock. I heard things I'd never, heard before, and especially in the barrack room, the talk seems to be all about sex. We got the impression, we youngsters of 18, that married men had only one interest in life, and that was sex. After I'd been about a year in the army, I was put on a boat with my colleagues. I suppose one can call it a troop ship. It was part of a convoy. And of course we were not told where we were going. There was all sorts of speculation before we left England. I was praying that the rumour that we were going to be sent to India was true. I arrived in India, the troop ship docked, the Bombay docks, and I just saw initially a long row of corrugated buildings. I also remember lots of cranes idly swinging on the dockside, and as we got nearer and nearer, these corrugated iron buildings became bigger and bigger, and I saw lots of little dark men in loincloths running around. From Bombay I was taken by a troop train to Delhi, and there of course once I was in Delhi, especially old Delhi, everything changed. Everything was so picturesque. So when I'd been a few weeks in India, I must say I really felt very much at home. People do quite often ask me how I came to leave the army. And I suppose I have to confess that technically I did desert. But I must also say I considered myself thoroughly justified in deserting. The war was ended. I'd done my duties, such as it was, and I wanted to get on with the living of my own life. So I decided to take not only my life into my own hands, but even, one might say, the law into my own hands. I felt I was morally quite justified in doing this. So I managed to go on leave, visiting my relations, my uncle and his wife, in Calcutta. And at the end of my leave, I just disappeared. We discarded our secular dress. I destroyed my identification papers. We gave away our possessions. So from the little hill station of Kasali, we walked and walked and walked right down to the plains. and there our wandering life began. Obviously, I didn't forget my parents all this time. When I was in Colombo, in fact, I wrote to both of them, and they were by that time separated, saying that I thought I wanted to become a Buddhist monk on leaving the army. So I got a reply from each of them. My father wrote back saying, "Your life is your own, you must do with it whatever you think is best." My mother wrote back and said, "Become a monk if you want to, but I hope you'll come and see me sometimes." After I was ordained officially as a Buddhist novice monk, I took up the traditional Buddhist discipline of actually going from door to door with a begging bowl and standing outside each door and waiting for something to be put into that bowl. According to Buddhist tradition, we're not supposed to ask. My ordination as a full monk took place in Saranath, near Benares. Saranath being the place where the Buddha delivered his first teaching after his enlightenment, after the occasion when he became the Buddha, the enlightened one. So for the next 14 years, in fact, I was in Kalimpong and eventually founded a monastery there, and that was the headquarters for my work, not only in the surrounding area, but over a large part of India. We don't have any rules in Buddhism, we have principles. We have ethical principles which we try to embody in our lives. There's the principle of not harming other living beings. Now this is, again, not a rule. The principle is laid down. It is not said, "Thou shalt be a vegetarian." But if you imbibe that principle of non-violence, of not harming other living beings, if you try to make it a part of your life, very likely you will end up feeling that you can't eat meat, because the eating of meat involves killing. In the same way, there's the principle of not exploiting other living beings, not taking from them by force or fraud what they're not willing to give you. Similarly, there's the principle of abstaining from misbehavior in sexual matters, sexual relationships, not exploiting other people sexually. And then, very importantly, there's the principle of truthful speech. This is something I've been thinking about a lot in recent years, because it seems to me less and less importance is being attached in the world at large just to plain ordinary truthfulness. There's a sort of, what did Orwell call it? A sort of newspeak. There are various forms of newspeak which really deviate in one direction or another from plain, direct truthfulness. Not only truthfulness, we attach very great importance in Buddhism to speaking kindly to other people, affectionately to other people, not gossiping, not slandering. These are all forms of right speech, all forms of truthfulness. And finally, there is the principle of not taking any drink or drug that clouds the mind. Buddhism doesn't say you've got to be a teetotaler. Again, no rule is laid down, but Buddhism certainly does say, keep your mind clear and bright. Don't befog it, don't cloud it. I personally think of Buddhism as a very reasonable religion. And I think that is precisely the reason why it doesn't appeal to some people. There are people who like everything very extreme and very exaggerated and like to be carried away by their feelings. But that isn't really the style of Buddhism. It wasn't the style of the historical Buddha. From all that we know about him, we know that he was a very reasonable person. He was prepared to talk, to discuss, prepared to listen. He didn't threaten and fulminate. He just tried to convince people by purely reasonable, purely rational means. Sometimes I'm asked about the intolerance of Christianity, but it's not a question of the intolerance simply of Christianity. I think it's a question of the intolerance of that whole group of religions, which we call the Semitic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They all have a very pronounced streak of intolerance, and that would seem to me to be tied up very often with the idea of one God who is a jealous God, who doesn't like people to worship other gods, who wants to be the only God, and that inevitably leads to intolerance. There's quite a few well-meaning Christians nowadays who would like to forget the past, who'd like to forget the medieval past, who'd like to forget that centuries ago people were burned at the stake, in their thousands even, in the name of Christianity, in the name of Christ, with the full blessing and approval of the Catholic Church. But in my view, we can't really forget those things ourselves and not allow Christians to forget those things themselves, because the basic doctrinal assumptions of Christianity are there. And at rock bottom, Christianity is still a quite dogmatic religion. And I personally believe that if circumstances were to change, if certain churches at least were to get back the secular power that they had some centuries ago, they would start behaving in much the same way again. When I speak of basic doctrinal assumptions, I mean things like the divinity of Christ and the fact that Christ is the only Saviour. I remember on one occasion I had a talk with a missionary, and he told me to my face that I'd be going straight to hell. Not only that, but I'd be going to a worse hell, if there is a worse hell, because not only had I gone astray myself by being a Buddhist, I'd led others astray by teaching Buddhism. The three jewels are quite simply the Buddha, the enlightened human spiritual teacher, the founder of the whole Buddhist tradition, or religion even. The Dharma is simply his teaching, the teaching of the way that leads to the achievement of the state of enlightenment, the same state of enlightenment that the Buddha himself achieved. The Sangha is the spiritual community, as we call it, of all those who are following the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching, and trying to become like the Buddha, trying to realize the state of enlightenment or Buddhahood. So these are the three jewels. And going for refuge, or going for refuge to the three jewels, means making the three jewels the most important thing in your life. And of course, bound up with that, there is the idea of karma, that what you've done in a previous existence, to some extent at least, determines the nature of your experience in a future existence. Putting it very simply, Buddhism does believe, or Buddhism does teach, that we don't have just this one life, or this life and another life in another world after it. Buddhism does teach that we have a whole series of lives, that we lived before, we live now, and we will live again after death. I've defined meditation as consisting essentially in a flow, a continuous flow of what we call skillful mental states. That is to say, states of love, states of goodwill, states of clarity, states of joy. When you have a continuous, uninterrupted flow of such thoughts on a higher and higher level, a more and more subtle level, passing through your mind, in the end, all the time, that is meditation, that is a meditative state. And you can't really get anywhere in Buddhism without, or anywhere in spiritual life, without first achieving that kind of state and it becoming more or less habitual. Some people would like to think that the spiritual life is very easy. This has certainly not been my experience. I think I probably found it a little bit more easy than some other people I know, but it certainly hasn't been really easy at all. There have been difficulties at every step. And I'm very, very doubtful about those teachers, single inverted commas, who offer easy panaceas. Sometimes one hears of weekend enlightenment courses being advertised. You go along apparently just for a weekend, usually to some luxury hotel, and you hear certain lectures or you do certain exercises, and hopefully at the end of the weekend you're well on your way to enlightenment, if not actually enlightened. This, I think, really is an absolute travesty of spiritual life. I don't think the sort of transformation, the sort of radical transformation that the spiritual life calls for can be achieved as easily as that. How will the world become a better place? Better, of course, is a rather ambiguous term. I think we've become, in many parts of the world, better materially, but we haven't become better spiritually. We haven't perhaps even become better psychologically. So far as the West is concerned, I don't think one can easily generalize about the world as a whole. So far as the West is concerned, I think we must place much less emphasis on material values, or to put it even more plainly, on consumer values. We mustn't think of ourselves just as consumers. Someone showed me a little slogan printed on a sticker the other day, which ran something like this: I purchase, therefore I am. And this is very much the attitude of a lot of people, and there's going to be no question of the betterment of the world until we get over that sort of attitude and are more willing to share with others less fortunate what we do ourselves have. If someone was to ask me what I thought I had given to the world, I think I should say that I hoped I had given to the world an example even of clear thinking, and I'd hope that I'd given a vision to the world, a higher vision, a vision of what the individual man and woman can be or could be, and a vision of what the world, society, mankind at large could be.